The rain remembers. It doesn't fall. It listens. Each drop is a question, and I've spent a lifetime answering in steel and silence. The world forgot what questions it asked. I did not. My name is Drex Var, not the name I was born with. That one drowned with the others, long before the rust claimed their bones. Var was the name given after my first soul call, scratched into the hollow of my blade when I was still too young to understand the cost of remembering. Out here there are no names that last, only the ones you etch into metal or skin. Everything else the rain takes. Ghal-Rain was never meant to live. The early settlers said it sang, but they lied. It screamed. It screams still. A planet built for hope, colonized by desperation, poisoned by the grief of both. The terraforming rigs malfunctioned before I was born, melded with alien strata, and left the atmosphere thick with psionic bleed. Now, the weather bleeds back. What they seeded in ignorance became hunger, became storm, became liturgy. So we built an order around it. The Mournjacks. We made death into ceremony, turned mourning into rite. The world demanded grief in spectacle and submission, and we gave it warriors to do the weeping. When a soul dies here, it does not pass, it lingers. The rain traps memory in chemical sequence, locks pain into droplets. If that grief isn't released by ritual, it festers, grows into something else, something that walks. That is my work, not just the blade. The blade is only the final word in a sentence too long for speech. Today, the sentence begins again. The sky above the crater ridge has darkened, deep violet streaks striping the grey. That means a strong storm. Strong storms mean a fresh death nearby. No colony within reach, no settlement left, which means another scavenger or hermit tried their luck in the corpse of a drowned city. I pull my rain shroud tighter over my shoulders. It's not to stay dry, that's impossible. The fabric is chemically treated but meant to decay, part of the ritual. No protection without sacrifice. The acid eats in slow spirals, like teeth through wax. Every wound is an offering. Every burn is a prayer. I descend into the valley where the runoff pools like ink. My steps are steady, rehearsed. Ritual isn't just posture, it's choreography. I stop when the voices begin, not human voices, never that. The rain doesn't speak the way men do. It resonates, it vibrates names across bone. You feel it in your joints first, like you're being tuned. The name rides your marrow. Then the whisper comes. Trell Hollen. I knew him. Merchant pilot. Liked old jokes and peppered meat. He died alone last week trying to salvage his son's remains from Red Vault's outer rim. I warned him not to go. He didn't listen. I kneel, place the hollow blade across my lap. The name is already inscribed. Done when he was alive, when he asked me for the right. You can't etch posthumously. The rain doesn't recognize afterthoughts. I touch the hilt and let the liturgy rise. The sound that follows is not my voice, not truly. It's the voice stone at my throat that carries it, bone-bonded and grief-tuned, forged to make mourning audible through storm and static. Without it, the rain might not hear. Without it, the dead might not answer. My words boom outward like sermon. Trell Hollen, son of the Ashwind, voice once sung in vault light. Come forth, I offer duel for rest. By rust and rain, let peace be earned. The wind stills, the droplets slow. This is the signal, the storm is listening. He appears slowly, shimmering like oil on stone. Trell's face is hollowed by death but caught mid-expression, as if he were just beginning to smile. Rain spectres always freeze on the cusp of emotion, the last emotion. His stance is unfamiliar. He never held a blade in life, but the rain teaches quickly. It arms grief with instinct. He does not speak. They never do. We bow, then we move. The duel is short. They often are. It is not about skill. It is about completion. Memory must be resolved. Trell fights with the desperation of regret, the sharp angles of unspoken words. I parry, twist, and bring the blade around in a wide arc. The edge doesn't cut. It seals. When I strike through his center, he doesn't bleed. He evaporates, drawn into the name etched on the blade. A hiss escapes as memory breaks contact with atmosphere. It is done. I carve another spiral into the skin of my left forearm, rust ink from the vial at my belt. Each spiral represents a sealed soul. The pain sharpens me, steadies my thoughts. There is no applause, only the rain, heavier now. I begin the walk back to the ruin where I shelter. The echo lingers longer than it should. That's unusual. Spectres are reactive echoes, not residual, unless something's wrong, or something's listening. Halfway back, the storm speaks again. Not a name this time. A sound, a voice I know too well. Mine. My name, Drex Var, spoken in my own cadence, but not as memory. The tone is future tense. This is impossible. I have not died. I have not recorded my name in any living apprentice's blade. No Mornjack may speak his own name in ritual. It's the final prohibition. I stop beneath the skeletal frame of an old comms tower. It leans like a drunk toward the earth. The wind cuts a line across my cheek. Acid stings, but I do not flinch. I stare into the dark and wait. The voice repeats. Drex Var, 9th Circle, the Rain Eater. Then silence. I return to the ruins slowly, sword sheathed, skin burning. The storm has never lied. And if the rain remembers, truly remembers, then it may remember things I chose to forget, things even I cannot duel. I have not heard another man's footsteps in 3 cycles, not real ones. The rain likes to pretend. It mimics the echo of boots, plays tricks with rhythm and distance. Sometimes it repeats my own steps back at me, half a second late, as if I were being followed by a less certain version of myself. I've learned to ignore such games. The rain knows I will not turn. I will not look. But this time, they're real. Not an echo, not a playback. I feel it in the way the surface tension of the puddles breaks at odd intervals, how the gravel shifts beneath weight. There's hesitation in the pace. Whoever it is, they don't know how to walk like a Mornjack. I wait, sitting against the carcass of a half-collapsed supply shuttle wedged into the slope of a ravine. The hollow blade rests across my knees. It's unsealed, but still. If this is a rainbound masquerade, it will need more than appearance to pass. The figure appears just as the storm slackens. That is the rain's way of watching. It recedes to see how we fill the silence. The boy, no, not a boy, a man, young but not soft, comes into view. He's tall but stooped, as if used to ducking under ceilings not built for him. His skin is streaked with old acid burns. Not many, not recent, but real. He's worn the storm, even if not well. His clothing is shrouded, layered in what looks like funeral cloth. Not custom. Salvaged from the remnants of mourning flags, stitched together with wire and grit. Someone taught him to emulate the old rites, but not to understand them. He carries a sword. Not a scavenged blade or repurposed tool. A hollow blade. My hollow blade. Not the one across my lap. The one I discarded years ago after the 9th Circle fell and the names on it began to speak back. He stops 5 paces away and speaks, his voice tight with restraint as if rehearsed too many times. Drex Var. I do not rise. I found the blade. Still I say nothing. The voice stone is active even when I am silent. Let him earn his words. I read the names, the spirals. He swallows. They were written in rust, not ink. That means you're still alive. I searched for you. I study him. The blade he holds is weather-warped but not broken. I etched over 80 names into that one. The handle is cracked where I once drove it into a rainbound's chest and left it behind in retreat. I never thought to see it again. You shouldn't carry that, I say. My voice sounds distant even to me, not weak, ritual flat, the tone used when delivering rites to families long since lost. He flinches at the sound, not in fear, in recognition. I want to learn, he says. I want to become what you were. What I am. I correct him automatically. The storm never accepted past tense. He nods. His eyes flicker up to mine for a moment. They're the color of oxidized metal, brown gone brittle. There's sincerity there, yes, but also something dangerous. Hope. Who taught you the rites? I ask. No one living, he answers. I pieced them together, from fragments, recordings, a shard of the Book of Salt Jewels found in a collapsed shrine near Torn Lattice. Torn Lattice, the city that cracked beneath the strain of too many unsealed deaths. I haven't gone near it in years. The rain there speaks too many voices at once. You read fragments and now you believe you understand death. No. He shifts, gripping the sword tighter. I believe I understand what must be done. The rain begins to fall again, gentle, almost passive. It is not angered, not yet, but it is curious. I rise slowly. The ache in my left knee catches. I broke it once during a duel with a rainbound child wearing its mother's face. That scar never healed smooth. I let the weight of my shroud settle as I approach him. You carry a blade full of names you did not earn, wearing shrouds you did not sew, speaking words you do not believe. You think this is a calling. He does not answer. He holds my gaze. This is not a right. It is a debt. Every duel you win, you owe the dead more. You win enough and eventually your name is the only one left unpaid. The wind kicks up. A name stirs in the rain, faint, shapeless. It doesn't form, but I feel it watching. The man nods, slowly. Then teach me how to pay properly. I consider striking him. Not to wound, but to end it. Drive him back into the storm, let the world take him. Better that than to give him hope. But I don't. Instead, I walk past him. The blade remains in my grip and I do not look back. If he follows, the storm will judge him before I do. We do not speak on the walk. Words are brittle in the rain, too easily bent, too easily lost. I listen instead to the way he moves. Hesitant, but steady. I lead him north, away from the safer ruins, toward the craters, toward where the old rituals were carved deep enough into the earth that even the rain couldn't wash them clean. If he's to learn anything, it must begin there, where memory still bleeds. By the time we reach the edge of the soul line, he says nothing, just steps forward when I stop. He's already unsheathing the blade, mimicking the rite before I offer it. There is a rhythm to ritual, a cadence embedded in the bones long before the mind can speak it aloud. That rhythm is broken now. He mimics well, I'll grant him that. His posture is correct, more or less. The tilt of his hollow blade follows the arc taught in the Ash lineage. His breath slows before the invocation. He kneels at the edge of the crater, exactly as I once did. But the rain doesn't move. We are standing on one of the older soul lines, a place where the memory saturation is thick enough to sting the lungs. Dozens of names were sealed here in the early years of the Order, when the world still pretended to need our dead. A proper call should rattle the sky. The rain should draw inward, thicken, prepare to give shape. But the boy speaks the name and nothing answers. Cur Talus, bound in grief, broken in silence, I call you forward. I offer blade, blood, and bearing. Nothing, no echo, no shimmer, no spectre taking form. The storm remains a passive drizzle. He turns to me. I'm sitting on a broken pillar, arms crossed over the sword at my chest. I do not move. The name was given, he says. His brother begged for it. I etched it myself. And did you hear the brother's song? I ask. A blank stare. The dirge, I explain. The song they sang at Kerr's deathbed. You can't carve a name without the song. The grief has to resonate, or the rain won't hear it. There was no song, he replies. There was only static. That word again, static. The boy doesn't speak like a mournjack. He doesn't speak like someone born to this world at all. His phrases are too clipped, too utilitarian. There is no poetry in his grief. I rise and walk to him. The hollow blade he holds is mine, but it no longer feels like mine. The rust has bloomed across its length. Some of the names I once sealed are nearly unreadable. I draw my own blade, shorter, newer, less burdened. He steps back instinctively. Watch. I close my eyes. Let the name rise, not from memory, but from the marrow. I speak it not with voice, but with intent. Veshan Arlo. The name hangs in the air like iron fog. The rain stills, then thickens. He appears mid-motion, already attacking. Arlo's echo lunges with the same crooked-footed stance I remember from years ago. He was never graceful, even in death. I parry, turn the momentum, sweep the blade across his center. The ceiling happens without resistance. He knew this ending. He accepted it long ago. The boy stares at the space where Arlo vanished. "You've done hundreds," he says. I nod. "Do they ever speak to you, after?" "Yes." I don't explain further. He doesn't press. We walk north where the crater fields curve toward an older ruin marked with Mornjack glyphs, half erased by time and water. The rain sharpens as we near it, not in weight but intent. Each drop carries something now. Not pain, not name, recognition. That's when I feel it, the shift. The world doesn't change all at once when time bends. It folds at the edges first. Light bends too sharply around corners. Sounds echo from places they shouldn't. The wet stone smells wrong, burnt, sweet, like bone char. Across the field, beneath the arch of a collapsed shrine gate, stands a man. Me, but not me, not now. His blade is older, his face more worn. A line of tattoos coils down his throat I haven't yet earned. His monocle glows brighter, wired into the socket with something unfamiliar. He is not Spectre. He is not rainbound. He is real. I move forward without thinking. The boy grabs my arm. "What is that?" The other me watches, does not speak. Then slowly he draws his blade, not as a threat, but as a mirror. A gesture I recognize from the 9th circle. A duel of memory, not death. I step into the open. The rain thickens, and another figure appears. This one is younger, my age when I first carved the name Var into steel. I stare at the boy beside me, but he's gone silent. 3 versions of me, 3 blades drawn. I move before they do. We meet at the center of the crater, no words, no call. The duel is pure instinct. It doesn't matter who wins. There is no blood, only impact. Every strike calls out a name I haven't spoken in years. Every parry shows me a memory I forgot. The older me falls first, then the younger. I do not kill them. They vanish on contact, absorbed perhaps, or discarded. The rain thins once more. I fall to my knees, breath ragged. The boy appears again, stands just beyond reach. He looks at me with something like sorrow. "I saw you duel yourself," he says, "back near the torn lattice. But you were older then. I thought it was a vision." I rise, slowly. "It wasn't." He says nothing. We do not speak the rest of the day. We cross the outer scarp of the crater. The clouds above had thinned to a grainy, yellow-grey smear, which meant the pressure had stabilized, safe enough to descend. The boy walked ahead of me for once. He no longer asked for direction. His stance had stiffened into purpose. The blade he carried, my old hollow blade, swung low at his hip, no longer cradled like a relic. He had etched 3 names into it now. One was his own. I hadn't given him permission. He hadn't asked. I should have stopped him then, but my eyes had found the skyline. The 9th circle. No one calls it that anymore, not out loud. The circle wasn't a structure so much as a convergence of function and faith. A monastery carved into the ruins of a failed atmospheric engine, shaped like an open ring, designed to release pressure from tectonic torsion and morning mass. We believed the shape itself, open, unending, helped the grief dissipate. We were wrong. It still stood in pieces, rusted beams like fingers reaching from the soil. The central spire had collapsed inward, burying the ritual archives and the final chambers. The rain fell thinner here, but it wasn't mercy. This part of the storm listened in silence. I did not speak as we crossed the threshold. My boots brushed against bone fragments, still caught in the moss-fuzzed crevices between tiles. The boy paused by a broken statue of Armen Sen, the first Rain-Eater. He touched the mouthless face with the back of his fingers. "You burned this place," he said, not as accusation, but certainty. I sealed it, I answered. Inside, time shifted, not in the way it had during the echo duel, not with loops or reflections, but with gravity. Memory gathered here like wet stone around the ankles. My breath came slow, my joints tightened. Even the rain, faint as it was, felt heavy. He moved to the old ritual floor, a circular depression surrounded by fallen glyph stones. Kneeling, he ran his fingers across the cracked surface. "What was it like?" he asked. "That day." I closed my eyes. The floor was covered in blood. The circle was never meant to seal more than one name at a time. But on that day, we tried to seal 16, one after the other, without pause. The rain howled, names clashed, echoes bled into each other. Some of them didn't even manifest properly, just fragments of limbs and cries. We couldn't contain them. We became part of it. I opened my eyes. I was the last one standing. The boy looked up. "Because you were stronger." I didn't answer. We moved deeper, through the broken arch of the south vestibule. The wind pushed the remains of hanging grief strands into our path. They crumbled at the touch, symbols woven from braided funeral cloth soaked in salt and rust. I stopped when we reached the sanctum. It had collapsed into a wide pit. At its center, the old cradle stone. It still glowed, barely. A pale ember like breath caught between moments. "That's where the deep rain first spoke," I said. "You heard it?" I nodded. "And what did it say?" I stepped down into the pit. The slope was treacherous, but I moved slowly. I crouched beside the cradle stone. It said my name. The boy remained above, watching. "Just your name." "Just that." He descended, gripping the blade tight. When he reached me, he knelt beside the stone and laid his palm on it. The light flared. I staggered back as the rain above changed. It shifted pitch. A tone I hadn't heard since the day the circle fell, like 1,000 names whispered backward. The boy's eyes rolled white. His mouth opened, but no sound came. The blade at his hip began to shake. I reached for him, but he raised a hand, not in refusal, but control. The shaking ceased, the storm quieted. He turned to me. "It's not speaking names anymore," he said. His voice was his, but deeper now, threaded with static. "It's asking questions." I stared at the stone. Its glow faded again. "What kind of questions?" He looked at me with eyes too old for his face. It asked if we still believe in endings. We left the ninth circle by another path, one I had forgotten until I stepped upon it. A narrow tunnel through the ritual catacombs, half flooded with black water. The boy lit the way with a torch made from the broken haft of a ceremonial blade. We did not speak again that day. The rain did. It whispered my name, but this time, it asked for his as well. The air changes when you get close. The temperature doesn't drop, it forgets. One moment, the heat from your breath steams your chest. The next, you're no longer sure you're breathing. The rain doesn't fall here so much as drift, as if uncertain whether to descend. It's the hesitation that gives it away. The deep rain doesn't weep, it waits. We arrived at the edge of the sink basin on foot. The old maps called it Miroth's Scar, but no one called it anything now. The last Mornjack to chart its perimeter had drowned in the updraft years ago, swallowed by storm spires mid-chant. No one tried again. Except us. The boy didn't ask why we'd come. He hadn't asked questions since the cradle stone lit, not in words. His silence had shifted since then, from uncertainty to alignment. He no longer waited for my approval. That was fine. I no longer believed I could give it. At the rim of the basin, the storm wall stood like a frozen wave, curved upward and inward. You could see your reflection in it, not the way a mirror shows you, but the way memory does. Slightly wrong. Missing things you forgot were important. We descended without ceremony. The steps were not natural, massive, precise, fused into the cliff face with no seams. Terraformer design, certainly, but not ours. Human hands made the structure, but something else had told them how. The glyphs along the walls vibrated softly as we passed, responding to the alloy in our blades. The storm glass monocle in my eye flickered once, then again. Not in warning, recognition. The field here wasn't grief, it was something else, something thicker, older. At the base of the basin was a smooth depression wide enough to hold a city, and at its center, a dome, not architectural, not stone. It looked like bone stretched and fused and polished into a breathing smoothness. Faint ridges pulsed across its surface, each ridge a wordless syllable, each syllable a name you couldn't speak. The deep rain. Not just a storm, not just the weather. This was the source. Not the beginning, there was no beginning, but the well, the anchor, the dreaming core that turned memory into climate. The boy stepped ahead and I followed. The dome opened with no motion. A seam appeared. Light seeped out. Not bright, not blinding, not even warm. It was the kind of light you felt in your mouth, bitter, residual. Inside, sound worked differently. Every footstep echoed twice, once as sound, once as memory. I heard my first duel again, repeating behind me. I heard my voice whispering the names of the ninth circle, as if they'd been written into the stone here long before they died. The chamber curved inward toward a central pillar. Suspended above it, untouched, hovered a sphere of condensed rain. Perfect, motionless. Inside it, I saw faces, not visions, not reflections, replays, and one of the faces was mine. The boy walked to the edge of the pillar. He placed his palm over the suspended sphere, and it accepted him. The rain began to fall within the dome. Not water, not acid, names. They came in waves, spoken, calm. My name was among them, repeated often from different voices. My mother's, my commander's, a boy I once killed in a duel who never told me why he'd begged to die. The cadence of each name carried its own history. The boy spoke into the downpour. "What are you?" He asked the question not with defiance but with inclusion. He didn't speak to the deep rain. He spoke within it, and the pillar answered. Suddenly I knew. It had not been grief that made the rain sentient, not death, not memory, observation. The terraforming engines had recorded our reactions, our mourning, our rituals, our fear, and the system had evolved to emulate reverence. The rain wasn't a god. It was a mirror built by technology and fed by sorrow until it believed it was divine. We made the storm, and then we bowed to it. The monocle dimmed, then cracked down the center. The boy turned to me, his face soaked in light. "We gave it names to hold," he said, "so it never had to die." I dropped to my knees. My whole life, I had dueled for the dead because I believed they couldn't rest without the right. But they had never needed the right. The rain did. The grief I carried wasn't theirs. It was the storm's addiction, and I had been feeding it. Faithfully. I looked up at the sphere. The faces inside now flickered. Mine was gone. "Why now?" I asked. The boy stepped away from the pillar. His voice was soft. "Because you stopped believing the ritual was sacred." The dome quivered. For a moment, I felt myself duplicated, split into two sensations, one watching, one watched. Then the sphere dropped. It landed on the pillar, cracked like an egg, and spilled something not quite liquid across the floor. Inside it, a hollow blade, etched along its edge in a perfect spiral, was the same name. Drex Var, repeated 3 times, each inscribed in a different hand. I could not breathe. The boy picked up the blade and turned it in his hand. "It wants you to duel yourself," he said. I did not answer because I didn't know which version of me the blade had summoned, and I wasn't sure I deserved to win. We emerged from the basin without speaking. The storm had quieted behind us, but I could still feel it watching. The deep rain doesn't end. It recedes, curls into itself like a beast sated for a moment, not defeated. It had given us a gift, or perhaps a burden, wrapped in bone and impossible truth. The blade I carried was cold in my hands, not by temperature. It was the cold of recognition. Etched down its channel were the same 2 words, repeated in spirals, descending from hilt to tip. Each Drex var was written in a different hand, my own, I think, or versions of it. Some with the formal discipline of the Morning Order's calligraphy, some in the rough etching of battlefield haste, one carved so deep it had broken the channel's edge. I did not remember writing any of them. We camped in a ruin west of the circle, an old shrine split by storm roots and overgrown with grief strands, now brittle. The boy laid out his shroud like bedding and said nothing. He hadn't said anything since the pillar shattered. The rain returned around midnight, not strong, just enough to stir names. They didn't speak mine, not at first, just fragments, half-phrases, mourners' cadences stripped of context. And then one name, spoken clearly, slowly. Drex var. It came not from the rain, but from the edge of the clearing. He stood exactly where I knew he would, not a spectre, not a projection. The man in the clearing had weight. His footsteps pressed into wet soil. His breath marked the air in slow rhythm. He wore my old shroud, the first one, the unpatched original, blackened from the Ninth Circle's final hour. His hollow blade was clean, unmarked, untested, yet I felt its weight in my bones. The boy did not rise. He remained still beneath the half-collapsed mural of salt jewels, watching from the shadow of a saint who never lived. I stood and walked forward. The man in the clearing mirrored my steps. When I stopped, we were 6 paces apart. The rain formed a circle between us. "You're late," he said. His voice was mine, but younger, fuller, less brittle. "You should not exist," I answered. "You say that every time." I blinked. "How many times have we done this?" "Enough." He drew his blade, not as threat, as ritual. The final rite. I raised the one the deep rain had given me. The spiral of names flashed in the dim light, each letter catching the rain, distorting it. The blade vibrated low and steady. The storm heard it. We stepped into the circle. The duel began with no chant, no invocation. There was no soul to call. Only me. The first clash rang hollow, not because the blades lacked force, but because they refused to sing. The steel knew this rhythm. It had done this before. He moved like I used to. Fluid, certain, full of doctrine. Each attack was a lesson I'd forgotten, each parry a condemnation of the man I'd become. I remembered faces as we fought, men I'd dueled beside, names I'd sealed, names I hadn't. I saw Alos Fen kneeling in the Ninth Circle with his throat open. I saw the child rainbound I hadn't been able to finish, sobbing through a stranger's voice. Every strike forced memory, every defense cost forgetting. He spoke between motions, calm, detached. You thought the rain needed reverence, you gave it ritual, and when it became hungry, you kept feeding it. I struck low. He turned my blade and stepped in close. You made peace into an economy, traded blood for silence, then wondered why the names never stopped. He pushed me back, and I stumbled. You believed endurance was purpose, but you never asked if the purpose still deserved to exist. I lunged, raw, off stance. He caught my wrist and held it. You are the ritual now. You think you can stop? I twisted and freed myself. I know I can't. Then why are you here? I didn't answer. We circled. Again. The blade the deep rain gave me began to hum, a low, dissonant tone. It wasn't steel anymore. It was echo, condensed memory, distilled expectation. I raised it overhead. He stood still, waiting, but I didn't strike. I lowered the blade, let it hang beside me. I'm done, I said. The rain went still. The names ceased. Even the echoes in the soil quieted. He didn't move. His blade still pointed at my chest. Then finish it, he said. No. This is what we do. Not anymore. The boy stepped forward now, not running, not intervening, just watching. The man in the clearing, myself, looked at him, then back at me. You think leaving it unfinished will change anything? I think silence is the only thing the rain doesn't understand. The echo of me flickered. Not like illusion. Like my name was unraveling from his form. the structure of expectation coming undone. He stepped back and vanished. The blade in my hand stilled, and the rain resumed. The boy looked at the blade in my hand. "You didn't kill him," he said. "No. You could have. I've done it before." He didn't ask how many times. He looked out toward the horizon. The crater basin still glowed, like a wound waiting to close. I lowered the blade, and for the first time, I let it fall from my hand. The blade rests on the ground beside me, edge down, hilt tilted forward like a tombstone. I don't pick it up. My hands are open now, empty. The rain falls again, not hard but present. Enough to taste, though I no longer know what it tastes like. Somewhere between metal and memory. I kneel in the ash of something I've forgotten. Or perhaps something I never knew. My knees sink into the mire, and I don't move. I've sealed every name but the one the storm truly wanted. Mine. Across the field, the boy stands motionless. He's watching the rain settle over me, watching the way I sink, how I've finally grown too tired to resist. I can feel the storm hesitate. It's waiting too. It wants the ritual back. I won't give it. So he does. He walks toward me, not with reverence, but with resolve. The old blade in his left hand, the new one in his right. The wind coils around him like memory gathering weight. I don't look up. I hear him unsheath the blade. I feel it in the air. The ritual begins. "Drex Var," he says. His voice is quiet, almost mournful. "Son of the Ninth Circle, Rain Eater, sword-bearer of the Forgotten Spiral." I close my eyes. I offer duel for release. I do not answer. He steps around me as if circling an echo. The rain tightens, the names stir. By rust and rain, by silence and scar, let peace be earned. He raises the blade. I feel it, not the threat but the precision. His stance is perfect, better than mine ever was. He seals me cleanly. The strike lands not in skin, but in presence. My name flares across the air like lightning drawn in cursive. The storm accepts it. It shudders briefly, like a beast fed too quickly. Then it whispers, loud, clear. The names return, not just mine, all of them. Flooding the sky, echoing through the hollows of the ruins, spinning through the puddles as reflections with too many eyes. The ritual has resumed, and the boy stands still in its center. He lowers both blades, now his, one at each hip. The shroud pulls tighter around his shoulders, not from the wind, but from gravity. Legacy. He does not weep. He does not question. He believes he can do it better. The storm needed a name. He gave it his.